This is Nelson Olmsted, and I'm going to tell you the lovely story of the Lonesome Pine by Ludwig Bemelman. And along with the story, you will hear music written by Ludwig van Beethoven. It's Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony, which is all about the countryside, meadows, hills, little brooks, and thus goes together very well with the story of a lonesome pine in a forest. Many years ago, deep in the deep green forest, a little pine tree came into this world. It stretched its thin arms unworried to the sky and looked out over the valley below. But then it discovered that it stood on the edge of a cliff, and that the wind blew at it day and night, and that the snow tried to smother it. The little pine tree knew that if it wanted to stay, it had to fight. And so it held onto the rocks with a will. And thoroughly rooted, the little tree stayed and grew. It grew old, so old it outlived several generations of trees that grew up easily and straight, but were chopped down and became parts of houses, furniture, and ships in the world below. Nobody wanted the lonesome pine. It was useless to men. It had grown so big that its twisted boughs spread like a green cover low over the ground. And in this safe shelter, secure from hunters' eyes, a stag raised his young. And now the pine tree was no longer lonely. The tree and the stag became great friends, and together grew very, very old. The stag was now a grandfather many times, and his antlers were the largest in the forest. And he came daily to the tree, not to sleep there anymore, for his old friend had become barren and no longer could offer him cover. He came there out of friendship and to look out over the valley below so that he could warn his grandchildren playing deep in the deep green forest of danger approaching. One day, a hunter below, looking through his powerful binoculars, saw the stag in the first morning blush. But the stag did not see him, for his eyesight was failing. The young deer, the stag's grandchildren, played while danger approached. And the old stag wandered off to feed at the edge of the forest, while the hunter carefully climbed and came up over the edge of the cliff. The stag stood only 100 yards away. The hunter leaned against the tree to steady himself. But suddenly, just as he was about to squeeze the trigger, the tree whispered a warning. From between two clouds that were as puffed cheeks, there came a burst of wind. And the tree twisted and knocked against the hunter. One of the roots tripped him, and he stumbled and fell. The hunter picked himself up. Forgotten was the old stag, forgotten his gun lost in the ravine. The hunter fled forever the peaceful forest. Thank you, my friend, said the old stag to his friend, the old pine tree. Suddenly, they saw a moving shadow. They looked up, and there, swinging back and forth quietly on one of the outstretched arms of the pine, hung the sharp binoculars which the tree had lifted off the hunter's shoulders as he fell. Now, all this happened a long time ago, but the hunter's binoculars are still there, hanging from the arm of the old pine tree. And now, all the old stag has to do is to stand there and look down into the valley through the binoculars for other hunters. And if he doesn't die of old age, he and his family will live happily forever after. And that's the story of the Lonesome Pine. The story of a wonderful friendship deep in the deep green forest.